So this here is the first tattoo that I ever got while locked up. And this tattoo has a pretty crazy story behind it. Also, check out that little bump right there. I'm not sure if you can really see that or not, but that bump is really important to this video. In this video, I'm not only going to tell you about me getting my first tattoo while locked up, but I'm also going to tell you about keeping a tattoo clean and how to keep a tattoo clean when getting a tattoo while locked up. So what this tattoo actually is, it says J, that spade right there is an A, and that is a Y. And J is what I used to go by when I was younger, thinking that was my little alias. J Money. Yeah, I didn't want people to know my name when I was doing bad things. I don't know. I was stupid. So J ended up being the first tattoo that I ever got while locked up. And there are also some initials in this tattoo as well. That says CB right there. And that in there says RA. CB stands for Christina Boone. RA stands for Rebecca Ash. And you would imagine that those are girlfriends of mine from the past, but that's not the case at all. Those were actually two very good friends of mine that I knew while growing up, who actually both passed away while I was locked up. Very tragic, very unfortunate, and also a story for another time. But I did want to get their initials both put in this tattoo when I got this tattoo done. When I first got this tattoo done, this was not something that went very well at all. And what happened was, again, I was young, I was dumb, I was locked up, and I wanted a tattoo. And I let a guy tattoo me who really didn't have any kind of tattooing experience whatsoever. This was a pick and poke tattoo at first. I say at first because over time it was eventually, I guess, fixed the best that it could be. But this guy that I let tattoo this on me really had no tattooing experience whatsoever. And he used a staple to pick and poke or pluck this tattoo into my arm. And to be honest with you, he didn't even sharpen the staple at all. In fact, the staple looked a lot like this right here. It was about this sharp. And this is what he was using to pick and poke and pluck this tattoo into my arm. And needless to say, this did not turn out well at all. In fact, there are still remnants of that first experience right here in this line right here that you can see right by the J. And you can just see how ragged that is right there and how just beat up my skin was at the time when I got this. He absolutely butchered me throughout this process. In fact, he only was able to complete the J, this raggedy ass line right here, and also this spade. So you got to imagine the Y wasn't even on here at all. And after about 8 hours of devastating open heart surgery, what it felt like him actually doing this work on my arm, I could not take it 1 minute longer. Dude, you have to stop. We got to do this again tomorrow. I can't take it. And then that night I went to sleep. Before doing so, I cleaned it and put cocoa butter lotion on my arm. I will never forget that. And the next morning I woke up sleeping on this side of my arm. And my shirt was down, but when I woke up, I remembered my arm was just itching really, really bad. And I had no idea why until I lifted my arm up and I saw that all over this tattoo area were these little red zits everywhere. And I had no idea what the hell that was. There was a gigantic one of these zits literally right here where that scar is, right there. And these things itched, they were irritating the hell out of me, and I found myself not only itching these bumps, but also popping them as well. They were these little itty bitty red bumps with white heads, and I was popping them just as quickly as I could. And the big one on the back of my arm, as I'm popping that one, there's just so much, it was just so nasty, the stuff that was coming out of my arm. These bumps actually got so infected that that one bullet wound scar right there was really a crater-sized hole in my arm. I was actually able to take that prison bar of gold toilet tissue and take a piece of that toilet tissue, ball it up, and literally could fit this inside of that hole in my arm. This was able to fit inside of there. Something was obviously wrong with this tattoo and I had no idea what it was. I was attempting to wash it as much as I possibly could and putting Noxzema on it, thinking that this was just some sort of allergic reaction to the cocoa butter lotion I had put on the tattoo previously. But it was a major cause for concern. I ended up filling out a medical request form, and like 7 days later, yeah, the medical service while locked up is the slowest ever. Like 7 days later, they finally called me down to medical. They looked at my arm, and the first thing they said to me was, "So you decided to get a tattoo while locked up, huh?" No, it's not a fresh tattoo, I swear. But obviously they knew better, and they told me, "Well, because you did get this fresh tattoo, you now have a staph infection." And I really wanted to incorporate images of just what a tattoo staph infection looks like, but I gotta be honest with you, while looking those up on Google, they were pretty fucking disturbing. And if you want to see for yourself, you can look it up. I just don't recommend that you do so while eating. Those were some pretty graphic pictures, I have to say. Mine was not really as bad as anything I saw there, but again, I did have this gigantic crater of a hole in the back of my arm that seemed to be the mothership of this staph infection. So what they did was they took their little cotton swab sample, sticking that all the way inside of my arm, damn near to my bone. That's how deep this wound in my arm was. Sent that off to the lab, but they already knew it was staph. So they put me in medical isolation. And medical isolation is pretty much like solitary confinement of the medical infirmary. And this is where individuals go who have been beaten very bad and need medical observation. This is where individuals who have suffered from sexual assault are. This is where you really don't want to be at. And I had to be here for like 2 weeks. I spent 2 weeks in medical isolation while they fed me these little red pills that caused me to piss bright orange. It was almost like I was pissing out orange paint. But it was these pills that helped the staph infection that had basically infested my entire arm subside and ultimately go away. After that, I was sent back out into population, sent to another cell block where you would have imagined I would have learned my lesson from this, having just undergone 2 weeks of medical isolation. But that wasn't the case at all. In fact, as soon as I could find someone who could finish this tattoo for me, I did so. I did, however, learn a lot about what it takes to keep a tattoo clean when getting a tattoo while locked up. Through experiences of my own, like the one that I just told you, and from me actually learning to tattoo, there were a lot of things that I learned about how to prevent infections, especially staph infections or anything else bad that could happen from getting a tattoo on the inside. The first thing that I learned about keeping a tattoo clean while locked up is that when it comes to the needle, you never want a needle that looks this sharp. And also, anytime that you are tattooing, you never reuse the same needle. No matter what it is that you're using as your tattoo needle, whether it is a staple, a click pin spring, or a guitar string, or anything else that you're using for your needle, you never reuse that. No matter if you don't finish the tattoo and you think that you can pick it up again tomorrow where you left off, you have to make a new needle. And of course, you never use one needle for 2 or more different people. One needle, one person, one time. So no matter what, you're always going to be making a new needle. Also, if you were in a cell block tattooing or getting tattooed and you know there is somebody in there who has a staph infection, that is a major red flag that tattooing cannot happen. Staph is an airborne thing, I think, something like that, and it is easily spread through open wounds. So if one guy across the cell block has some sort of a staph infection or staph-like symptoms, you cannot tattoo, no matter even if you were on the other side of the cell block. Why? Because if that individual you're tattooing gets any type of infection whatsoever, whether it be staph or whether it be any other type of infection, chances are that guy is going to blame you for that infection and he is going to want to fight you. So ultimately, the goal while tattooing or getting tattooed while locked up is to avoid infection at all costs. When it comes to the ink that you use to tattoo, you never reuse the same ink either. Just like with the needles. If you don't finish the piece that you're doing or getting done and think that you're just going to cover up the cap of ink and use it again tomorrow, that's a major negatory. That ink is used and also is contaminated. Anytime that you tattoo, you have to use fresh ink, new ink. The cap that you put your ink inside of most likely a toothpaste cap, you can't reuse that either. So anytime that you have to stop and continue the next day, you not only have to have a new needle, new ink, but also a new cap. The rag that you use while wiping away blood and ink while tattooing is probably the most tricky of everything when it comes to tattooing while locked up. Because in most cases, the rags guys use to wipe away blood and ink is oftentimes a torn up clean t-shirt. But how clean is anything while you're locked up? Just thinking about prison laundry doesn't sound very clean at all. Yet in most cases, this is what is used while tattooing. Having gloves on while tattooing is also key. Guys are able to get gloves from other prisoners who have cleaning detail jobs where they're allowed to get gloves from the guards. You go to these guys to get your gloves who get the gloves for you from the guards. But just like with the needles, the ink, the cap, anytime that you stop for whatever reason, even if you're only taking a break and you're taking those gloves off, you have to use new gloves when you start again. And imagine this, while tattooing locked up, you're doing your work and the guards start making their rounds and you have to take everything off, unplug your machine, put your cap away, figure out something to do with your rag that's hopefully sitting on a piece of paper or inside of some sort of saran wrap that you're able to ball up and put somewhere safe so that the guards don't see it. But I have seen so many times when the guards are making their rounds and people are caught off guard while tattooing that they take everything off in haste and unplug everything as quickly as they possibly can and completely throw everything underneath the bunk right there where they're tattooing, right on the floor. That is not very clean at all and is absolutely a recipe for disaster and also a tattoo fail. But it happens. It definitely happens while you're locked up. Once the piece has been completed, aftercare is just as important as everything else that I've mentioned. The individual with the fresh work has to go into the bathroom to clean that tattoo off with warm water and soap. But in a lot of cases, bathrooms in jails and prisons are in direct line of sight with the booth where officers sit, keeping an eye on everything. And in a lot of cases, those officers are keyed into those bathrooms. What you doing there, Johnny? Just looking at the bathrooms. And sometimes these guards inside of these booths are on high alert for individuals going into these bathrooms with fresh tattoos. I'm gonna catch me some fresh ink today. Major risk involved in that alone. Once the tattoo has been washed off, I would oftentimes tell guys to put A&D ointment over top of that tattoo. A&D ointment for the most part is sold on commissary in jails and prisons. And it's also a very good thing to have while locked up in an attempt to prevent any sort of infection or tattoo fail. Some prisoners would take saran wrap and put that over top of that fresh tattoo with that A&D ointment already on that tattoo. But in some cases as well, that saran wrap is not clean. This saran wrap may be smuggled back from the chow hall and was once used to wrap up their prison bologna sandwiches. And now they're gonna go ahead and stick it right on their arms. Not very clean at all. But that type of stuff does happen. If a guy locked up is gonna wrap up a tattoo with saran wrap, hopefully it's some fresh saran wrap that has been stolen out of the kitchen and not saran wrap that was once used to wrap up their prison bologna sandwiches. Throughout the many years that I spent locked up, I learned that you're pretty limited when it comes to keeping tattoos clean. But through use of the methods that I've just talked about in this video, those are pretty much the best ways that you can go about it. And hopefully with those methods, your tattoo will be a success and not a fail that leads to an infection and a guy who wants to fight you. Hey, look, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did so, please leave a like and a comment. Let me know exactly what you think about it. And until next time, enjoy life, the free world. Never take a moment for granted and make the most of every day. Peace! Let's give a few shout outs, starting with Instagram. Caden2573, Moonchild, and also Toxic Paul. Special shout out to all of you. Thank you for the support on Instagram. From Twitter, Ibrahim56, Kaj, Kaj, I think that's right. and also King Vega 02. Special shout out to all of you on Twitter. Thank you for your support. And from my last video, Johnny Perez video idea. How to keep a tattoo clean in prison. That's this video right here, Johnny. Let's shout out RJ, Morbid Angel, Melvin Jacoby, and two more, Justin Finesse and M Taxi Sheep. Thanks to all of you and to everyone else for all of the love and support of After Prison Show. And until next time,